The festive season has begun with gusto. Despite money worries, for most people, the mood is upbeat. In the first full-fledged post-pandemic celebration of festivals across India, people are out and about and willing to travel and visit each other. Claiming to be back at pre-COVID levels, India's leading ride-hailing app Uber says it's time to stop talking of recovery and talk of growth instead. To offer us the big-picture view on growth prospects, customer expectations in a changed world, brand identity, new initiatives and the competitive landscape, I'm joined by Prabhjeet Singh. He's the president of Uber India, also responsible for the mobility business in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Prabhjeet, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show, Anuradha. I'm a huge fan.
That's good to hear. Let's start by talking about growth. I have some numbers that I have seen, and where it comes to auto and moto, which is, I guess, bikes.
That's right.
You've got some 220% increase over January 2020 and 120% increase again over January 2020 for moto. So this is low-cost mobility. Give me the picture here for growth, explain this, and then let's move to cars.
So, Anuradha, Uber's in the business of moving people from point A to point B. And when the cities shut down, Uber also came to a halt. But as cities have opened up and people have started moving out, we have also been on standby and are now seeing resurgent rebound in the business. We are seeing not just growth across the platform, but particularly certain categories. So, for example, as you mentioned, low-cost solutions have absolutely taken off, particularly post the pandemic. Three-wheelers and two-wheelers. This is how, by the way, majority of the country actually travels. They don't travel by air-conditioned cars, which was originally how Uber entered the market and how most of our early consumers know us as. So we are seeing multiple folds of growth on three-wheelers and two-wheelers. Large part of that is driven by these are affordable solutions. They're also solving a core consumer need of being able to get three-wheeler, two-wheeler at a doorstep, which otherwise you would not be able to do. We are also seeing, by the way, similar strong growth on other segments, for example, intercity.
What is growth looking like in your core business or the first offering, which I would guess is still the lion's share of your revenues, isn't it? And that is the taxis, the cars.
So the way we look at the business, Anuradha, is cars, auto and moto. And then there are new initiatives which I'm happy to talk about, which we have recently piloted. Now in the core cars business, the bulk of the business is in moving people within a city from point A to point B. Could be for commute use cases, could be for recreation use cases,
So what's the growth you're seeing there?
So we are seeing that that segment is now just shy of full recovery pre-pandemic. It is very much correlated to whether offices have opened up and whether commuters are back to using the service for the same frequency and going to office that often. So we are seeing now that just shy of full recovery, while other categories have actually are all in the growth phase now.
Right. So, and if you were to give me a sense of which category contributes what to your revenues, that would help, even if you're not going to give me any direct numbers.
I'll give you a fun fact, Anuradha, which I would imagine many of your viewers may not know. Today, Uber in India does more trips in terms of volume on three-wheelers and two-wheelers than on four-wheelers. So that gives you a rough sense of where the volume split is. And when it comes to value, obviously the trips on a car-based service tend to be more expensive just given the cost of operations is higher. But we thereby still see about 3/4 of our revenue coming from the cars business and about 1/4 of the revenue coming from our three-wheelers and two-wheelers. But that is changing rapidly.
Yeah, because I was just, it's interesting because you're saying that cars are giving you 3/4 of your revenues roughly and still not yet fully recovered, and there are changes in the way people are behaving, especially in terms of office commutes, and you have low-cost mobility growing so fabulously. So does that mean that strategically you're going to reallocate the resources behind these two categories? I mean, low-cost and cars?
Look, we need to step back, Anuradha. What are we trying to build? We are trying to build a mobility solution for the next hundreds and millions of users in India. So all our resource allocation is actually talking to that. And the future growth will come from the length and breadth of the country, from segments we have actually not catered to in the past. So that's why we see three-wheelers and two-wheelers actually continue to get a significant share of the investments we make, because these are categories which are still very nascent. We are in the process of getting more drivers and riders to the platform. We'll continue to invest behind new experiences on the core cars business. So for example, As we speak, we have scaled up our rentals and intercity service within the cars portfolio. So we are beginning to see further differentiation within the traditional categories also. So our investments are very much on tech, resourcing on all the products, but I do anticipate the future will involve Uber looking far more different from than what you have known it in the past. We'll have three-wheelers, two-wheelers, we'll have buses. We have recently actually launched a pilot for buses in one of the cities, and we hope to scale that up.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that, because the way things are going, I think our cities will require more public transport and will require a lot of car users to start taking public transport, right? So talk to us a little bit about that pilot.
Anuradha, we at Uber fundamentally have three core theses. We believe that shared mobility is the path forward for India, where we need to challenge fundamentally private ownership of vehicles. To encourage shared mobility, we also need to thereby make services available at price points which are affordable and in a way which consumers are used to using services. That's why we are taking the same technology and now deploying it in high capacity vehicles or buses. So what we have done now is in select cities, more recently in Gurgaon, we are running a couple of pilots. One of them is with the Gurgaon Municipal Development Authority, where we are taking the buses which are owned by the local authorities and making them available on the Uber app. So these are air-conditioned buses. You get to pre-select the seat. You have a pre-booked seat. You can see the ETAs the same way as you can see for other services on the Uber app. And we do believe this will fundamentally encourage some consumers to go back to using public transport in a big way. We're also running other combinations of these pilots, for example, for corporates, where certain corporates post-pandemic told us that they would like to have the flexibility, the safety, and affordability of an Uber service, but they would like to make sure that they move consumers, their employees, from home and workplace in bigger vehicles. So we are actually running a bunch of pilots around that. I would imagine that if we kind of fast forward 5 years from now, the way I'm speaking about three-wheelers and two-wheelers becoming a very large part of the portfolio, I do anticipate we will see that happen in other parts of the portfolio, including buses. This continues to be a market which pushes us to innovate, and some of these innovations are now being taken global, and that's why India is such a special part of the Uber ecosystem, not just as an incredibly powerful market, but for what we are doing and building here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the cash payments was an India innovation. You had to do it, right, for India. So India makes you, and Indian consumers and customers make people have to rethink and customize the solutions that are being offered in this market. Surge pricing is something that has constantly been debated and talked about. We know the CCI, the Competition Commission of India, earlier this month has asked you guys, all you guys, to be more transparent and self-regulate. We know that the Consumer Affairs Ministry is also, you know, weighed in on this. What is the transparency that you can offer customers when it comes to surge pricing? Because that seems to be something, no matter what the convenience that you'll offer, surge pricing seems to be a trade-off that we are not willing to come to terms with.
Anuradha, we are in our 9th year of our operations now. I don't think across the ecosystem, from riders, drivers, regulators, and the wider influencers in the ecosystem, there's a very deep appreciation and understanding of what dynamic pricing does. At the end of the day, what we are trying to do is match pools of demand, which is deeply variable, and pools of supply, which also tends to be deeply variable, which has multiple other choices. And thereby the pricing is a balancing factor which plays out. The two core theses we have already deployed. One is we are actually already providing one of the most transparent pricing mechanism. For example, today versus say 10 years back when ride-hailing apps didn't exist, when you open the app, you actually get a estimation of the fare from point A to point B to the second decimal on the app. Second, for some reason, because the route was different or there was a change in the pricing through the trip, you have avenues which are where within a 24-hour window, somebody will be available through an in-app request to respond to any queries you may have. Third, there is a very clear transparency in terms of, in all the cities we operate in, we make sure that we are compliant with the local regulations. So each city tends to have specific pricing criteria which we adhere to across the board. So I do think this is now a core part and a core acceptance of the ride-hailing category. I think the feedback when it comes from multiple other authorities, we continue to engage and work on that. I do believe that now we have reached a stage where even other industries, for example, Indian Railways, are
using dynamic
pricing. It has been a part of the hospitality industry, airlines industry for time immemorial.
So when the Competition Commission of India says we would like self-regulation in surge pricing and transparency on this front, what could it be? What could you offer as a premier ride-hailing service in this country? What could you offer?
It is too early to comment on the specifics of what the Competition Commission has recommended. We are actually engaged in the process, so it's not been a unilateral recommendation. We are evaluating the recommendations and we'll work on that. And we'll continue to iterate. Look, what we do today, how the Uber app looks and feels today, as we spoke about, is so different from what it was a few years back. And we'll continue to iterate and improve. And we're pretty confident that all these inputs will help us become a far better and far more efficient and loved service. And as we get to serve the next 100 million consumers, the only way they will embrace us is if there is transparency, if we walk through on our promise of reliability and safety.
What will take you on the path to 100 million? How far are you from 100 million and how many years, and who's going to get you to 100 million?
It is an ongoing journey.
For
those of who know me, they know that I avoid crystal ball gazing, but we are on an accelerated path to having 100 million active consumers on the platform. These will come from length and breadth of the country, not just from the top 7 to 8 cities. We are already in 120 plus cities in the country, and we are expanding that network. In fact, we're launching cities where the first product might be a 3-wheeler or a 2-wheeler based service, because that is what is a better product market fit for those geographies. What we're also doing is focusing on 2 or 3 core investments. For example, we are finding ways to partner with other players in the ecosystem. So for example, we recently done a partnership with Amazon and with WhatsApp. With Amazon Prime, it's about being able to tap into the high-paying e-commerce user and encourage them to actually upgrade to better experiences because they have the privilege of being part of the Prime membership. At the same time, we're partnering with WhatsApp to do, again, a very India-first innovation.
So you don't download the app?
Don't download the Uber app, right? Because some of our consumers said that I'm actually comfortable using WhatsApp. My parents don't want to download another app. How do you, but I still want to give them the option of booking an Uber themselves. So we are actually running, after a successful pilot in Lucknow, we now launched the service in Delhi, where through the WhatsApp interface, you can request for an Uber and the same experience will flow through. All of this is being built in India, for India, by India-based engineering teams.
And you do a revenue share with WhatsApp and,
combination
Amazon
of
Prime. Is that how it works?
So it's a combination of commercial constructs because this is win-win for multiple platforms. And it's not just, these partnerships are not just limited to what we're doing on the demand side. We're also on the supply side. At the end of the day, for us to provide a service, we need to have more vehicles and drivers on the platform. So for example, recently, we brought to India one of our largest mobility fleet partner from Middle East and Africa to India, a player called Move, which is committing to putting thousands of new vehicles of different form factors, which will then allow us to provide different experiences to consumers. We are also partnering in the sustainability ecosystem, recognizing that it is shifting very quickly. How do we innovate in bringing the right quantum of electric and hybrid vehicles on the platform? So that we can see how the economics of those works on ride-hailing, so that eventual adoption by drivers can be accelerated.
Okay, Prabhjeet, just pause because we've got to take a commercial break. When we are back, we're going to move to the supply side, talk about drivers and the cars and how that piece of the puzzle is working for Uber India. Stay with us.